everybody, and welcome to Unapologetics. I am Brentley, and today we got a Christian nationalist article. This is the podcast where we read a Christian article and explain why it's stupid. And today we got secular Rarity on here to help us read this one. Should be kind of cool. It's kind of fun. This is by Robert Jeffress. And have you ever heard of Robert Jeffress before? Oh, you think you're muted there?
You're right, I am, and that's always a great way to start. But no, I had not heard of this this one Bob.
Bobby Jeffress. That's
Bobby, old Bobby. You know, he's at it again. But no, after perusing this article and just doing a quick search on the interwebs. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about somebody who is so blatantly violated federal laws already by, I think it's like the Johnson Amendment, the Johnson Act, right? Is the one where like churches and like they're not supposed to like be advocating for political parties or stuff, but something along those lines. So it's great. I'm excited. He's got a lot of really incorrect things that it took me so I love history and stuff, and like I've done a lot of stuff with like American history, and there's a good bit of it that it's like it takes me a second, and then once somebody says like two or three things, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I remember all of this. Yeah, okay, I remember this person and that story and whatever. And so it took me about 5 minutes to get most of this, to find most of these references that he's making here, and it was like, okay, that sounds familiar, but I don't think it's that way that he's laying it out. And then again, just again, a very quick search was like, oh yeah, no, he is wrong. Oh, okay. Yeah. Sweet. Okay, cool. Yeah, I thought I remembered that right. So I'm excited to show people that how just, I don't know, it is either completely sincere repeated misunderstandings or he's purposefully lying. I mean, that's he knows that these things aren't what he's presenting them as. So I don't know. I'm not positive.
I mean, it
could just be stupid.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of weird because you know how like most things are a spectrum. We think of these sort of things as not like a spectrum, but I think like part of him knows it's bullshit, and part of him knows that he wants to think it's not, and so he goes with the side that thinks, wants to think it's not,
Right.
I don't know. I think there is a way, that they can kind of do both. Maybe I'm wrong.
That's a good point. That's a good point. No, it could be both. He could both be kind of dumb on these things, and also every so often picking some stuff that he likes to highlight. Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I guess it's
we don't want to just shoehorn him into one or the other.
Right. We're not trying to generalize. Okay.
That's right.
That would be bigoted.
That's
good. No. So it starts out and he said, for people that don't know, like Telltale Atheist covers this guy a lot, and he's on some kind of show. I think it was with Kenneth Copeland, if I'm not mistaken. There was had 5 or 6 of these crazy Trumpy pastors that hang out with Kenneth Copeland.
On this guy's bio, on Bobby Boy's bio, it very prominently highlights his over 4,000 appearances on Fox News and other clearly partisan, politically focused news networks. It's fascinating. It's just like imagine somebody saying I've been involved in over 500 corporate tax fraud schemes,
publicly.
Yeah, right.
It's a lot.
It's that's your bio. It's like this person has been involved in finances for the last 15 years. He's done it's crazy. It's very weird.
It's impressive. I feel like a lot of religion is just it's everybody getting to a point of corruption where everybody's manipulative corruption to where everybody's just like, fuck it, we can't. I don't know. What are we gonna do?
They're just all bragging about all this. Well, I took $20 from from the pew yesterday. Like, I just saw it laying there, figured I should put it in the plate, but just put it in my pocket, you know? It's like, that's nothing, man. Wait till you hear what I do.
I did that like 20,000 times, but with people knowing about it. I know. I don't even know how I did it. It's like, so this gets kind of deep into law. Like, and you said you were, because I got a little bit lost in some of these because I'm
Oh
like,
yeah,
I hate this language.
I'm super happy to, especially like when we get to the things that he like points out, because he lists out a bunch of different like cases and a bunch of like specific instances from the United States like past. I'm really excited to get to those, and so I'll let you get read through all of this, and then when we get to some of those, I'll point out some of the specifics that I remembered and stuff, and then went and double checked on. And yeah, again, he's very wrong on all of them, and it's awesome to see how wrong he is across the board.
It's hilarious how they can do this. Okay, so I said, listen long enough to the arguments of the American Civil Liberties Union, or Americans United States for Separation of Church and State, and you will become convinced that the bedrock principle for our country was the government's neutrality toward all things religious. Our forefathers came to this country from diverse religious backgrounds. Some were Christians, others were deists, but most were secularists who believed religion was acceptable if confined to the church or home. Supposedly, our nation's founders were determined to build an unscalable wall to keep religious influence from seeping into public life.
Honestly, so far he's okay, except for the clearly he's setting this, you know, the attitude that he's clearly setting this up to be knocked down. Like,
Yeah.
other than that, you know, air that's through that. Honestly, not much of that is incorrect.
Yeah. And that's what's interesting is, like, you know, at least he thinks he's, you know, I mean, at least he's trying to not straw man. I'll give him that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's
Let's
like the
see
first paragraph is like, okay, yeah, a lot of that is fine. I'm with you so far. But then it's just, yeah, it's a sharp turn.
because he's starting from, you've heard that, but, and doing the Jesus thing. Well, you heard that this, but I say that, you know,
Right.
it's like they love that bait and switch, you know.
Mhm.
So it says, yes, yet that version of American history belongs to in the same category as the story of George Washington and the cherry tree tree. It's a myth. So boom, right there, first sentence. It's all myth.
It's a hard turn, and it just it's
I mean, he puts a bunch of space in between, I guess. So that's you know, he hit enter like at least 4 times here.
That's a good point.
I think
that's a good point. He wanted the gravity of the situation to really land well, so he paused. You know?
Right? Yeah.
He waited. He's like, all right.
I almost read long pause, and but figured that was in the actor directions. All right. Yet that version of American history belongs in the same category as George Washington cherry tree. It's a myth. The majority of our nation's founders were deeply influenced by biblical thoughts and thoughts. Sorry, that's funny. By biblical thoughts. They had the biblical thoughts, and then they did stuff. So, and we're devout Christians. Our founding fathers believed in a God who intervened in human affairs and wanted Christian principles taught and promoted in the public square.
So not the most important criticism I'm going to give today, but I do just think it's really important that we all remember that just moments ago, this person admitted that many of the founding fathers were deists. The main distinction between deism and theism really is whether or not the God intervenes in human affairs. The deists say that it doesn't. The theists say, yes, God does. So I just want to, again, just point out the fact that that little part right there where he says, our founding fathers believed in a God who intervened in human affairs is just wrong by his own admission, literally 4 sentences above, you guys. And that's how dumb this is. He could have solved this entirely by just saying some of our founding fathers believed in a God who intervened in human affairs, or even, I would have even accepted this word, which I know may blow some people's minds, but many of our founding fathers believed in a God. But by just saying our founding fathers believed in a God who intervened in human affairs, he's literally contradicting himself. That's silly.
Within 2 sentences.
Right. And he wrote this. This is the thing, is like when you speak extemporaneously, it's just stuff coming off the top of your head. Yeah, we're going to say stuff wrong. That's okay. And in future moments, in future conversations, people will go, "Hey man, you said this once, SR, but then you said this." It's like, "Oh yeah, I actually misspoke this time. Like what I really meant to say was this." Okay. This guy sat down, wrote out a draft, came back to it, looked it over, probably sent it to somebody to double, triple check, because he's at that status where he has definitely enough access and money to do that. And
Oh, yeah.
apparently through all of that, nobody once said, "Hey, real silly criticism here, but it kind of looks like you're contradicting yourself just right back to back." Again,
Right at
not
the
the
get.
most important thing I'm saying, but it does really make it should make you really skeptical of the rest of what's going on in this article, if somebody is that, you know, capable of stupidity that quickly. I guess that's just my thoughts.
Yeah,
That's personal opinions.
and I almost wonder if he's sort of tainted it that, like, on purpose, sort of,
Mm.
because he can make it like it's like, "Hey, everybody believes in a
Mhm.
God, man.
Mhm.
All of them believed in a God,
Mhm.
man." You
Mhm.
know, and so but because he left out what the distinction is between those 2, it just, "Oh, okay, well, they all believed in gods then."
Oh,
You know?
I definitely think that's a good point. I hear that a lot when it comes to religious and non-religious conversations. Is the religious people, almost always the people in those conversations are in that camp of theism. And that's where all the Abrahamic faith sits. That's where a lot of other religions sit. So it's a lot of things, right? But there is also that branch of people out there who believe in a deity but just doesn't think that God does anything. You very rarely are talking with them, but the theists love to count them. They're like, "Oh, no, 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 they're part of our camp too." And it's like, okay,
Right.
but their God doesn't care about how you have sex, and that's all your God seems to care about. So
Right.
they really
Yeah.
aren't in your camp.
No.
But yeah,
It's
that's a good point.
exactly, and honestly, a lot of when I'm just, like, hanging out with, like, regular people and stuff, like when I say regular people, when I'm just, like, hanging out with people I don't know are atheists, let me put it that
Right,
way.
right, right.
When, like, most of the time what they say is, "I believe something's out there, but I don't think anybody's, like,
Right,
probably
right,
right about it," you know? And so it's like, yeah, that's a
right.
pretty common take,
And
actually.
yeah, and if you want to, yeah, and that's not the same person that falls in line with this guy's like 16,000 congregation or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow, yeah, that is a lot
I
of,
know it's crazy.
people in a single congregation.
It's ridiculous. Why
Jesus.
would you want to gather with that many people? Like, I could never go to a mega church like that. It would just be going to like a freaking stadium event every single week of my life. Like, that would just be so uncomfortable for
Be
me.
so draining
I
too, man.
know.
I
Why
don't
would
even
you
like
want?
going to concerts because you got,
Right.
like, 2 hours of drive, and then you gotta, like, do the
It's like
parking garage thing and,
it's a whole thing. It's like, I know that whole day is completely consumed by this, but probably the day before and after is consumed by it, you know, because I'm resting up and like, no, I don't want to go out tonight because like I got this thing. Yeah, I know.
it's too
I
much,
don't know.
man. Like
I guess if you're the one leading the whole sermon and you're getting all the money, I guess it makes it a lot, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Surprising how your juices rejuvenate quicker that way.
I mean, exactly. I mean, congregation numbers were like the original subscribers, really. I mean, that's that's how you get
Oh
people
my
to hang out
gosh.
with you.
Oh my
It's
gosh. That's
it's fun.
so true. That's so true and uncomfortable. Oh,
Right. Oh god,
okay.
that's funny. So, the early leaders of our nation, or the foundation of our law should be eternal principles found in the Bible. They designed our brilliant system of government not on enlightenment principles, but upon precepts gleaned from the Bible. Though it is politically incorrect to voice such a belief, it is nevertheless true. America was founded as a Christian nation, and her continued success will be determined by her fidelity to her spiritual heritage. Wow, that's a fucking sentence.
He goes out of his way here. And again, we're really about to get to the meat of old Bobby's incorrectness here, but he goes out of his way in that one sentence to just be extra wrong. And it's surprising to me that somebody would want to do that, you know, because the sentence would have been fine and he would have gotten his point across in exactly the same manner had he left out the phrase, the not on Enlightenment principles. Like,
Right.
he could
Yeah.
have changed that to secular values. He could have changed that to many other words, or again just left it out and still gotten the point across that he wanted. By adding that, he is going out of his way to be incredibly, blatantly, demonstrably, factually wrong. And that is so weird to me that somebody would choose to do that, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
That's
because it is not contested by anyone that has any knowledge of what the term Enlightenment principles means, that the United States government in 1776 was indeed purposefully pointing to Enlightenment principles. There's nobody that disagrees with that. Like,
no.
and so why go out of one's way to be like, I'm just gonna throw this in here? Like, it's very obviously incorrect, y'all. It's very stupid. It's very obviously incorrect. The
Right.
literal hundreds of writings from all of these gentlemen who just apparently wrote way too much. They really did. I don't know why they did, but they all just wrote a shit ton and they just constantly wrote about stuff. And one of the biggest things that they constantly wrote about, Enlightenment principles and how it informed the founding of the
Yeah.
government. It's insane. It's so stupid.
Yeah, and like just secular values in the sense of like everybody getting along that all believes different things and all does things
Right.
differently, right? Because I mean, and you got to wonder if like the people came over like, oh fuck, the church is running the country, we better get out of here, right? And then they go, and then other people follow and like, you better follow the church, man, because we're gonna, all right, fine, we're gonna institute it here then too, all right? Because you guys aren't doing it right. Like they want the freedom, but they still want all the Christianity.
Yeah, and honestly, the in the next two things that he talks about, like it hits on that super well, and it just shows how he again he has to either be completely misinformed on everything that he's about to cite, or he is deliberately he's just deliberately obfuscating it, right? Like he's making it confusing so that people think he's right. Because yeah, everything he's about to say is wrong.
Right.
It's nice.
Yeah. It's like, and so you always know when he titles the first thing, like numbers, let the record speak. And like that doesn't say anything about anything that he's gonna say. It's just like there's records though. So
Yeah. All right, let's get to those records.
yeah. So spiritual beliefs of the founders. First, let's consider the spiritual beliefs of the men responsible for framing our U.S. Constitution. Were they neutral toward religion in general and the Christian faith in particular? 52 of the 55 men who attended the Constitutional Convention and formulated our nation's guiding document indicated some adherence to Orthodox Christianity and personal support of biblical teaching.
So this is very much like when we hear religious folk who say, we've got all these studies that show that people that when they're in religious communities that they're like they report happiness, they report higher happiness and stuff. So
Right.
the reason that I say this is like that is because what he is claiming as the evidence that shows that our founding fathers were just like hardcore, Jesus lovers, is that all but 3 of them indicated some adherence to Orthodox Christianity and personal support of biblical teaching.
Right.
That statement means nothing. Just in case anybody out there was confused. That statement means nothing. Indicated some adherence to Orthodox Christianity. Would anybody like to know what one particular principle of Orthodox Christianity is? Just general charity and kindness to the poor. Now, I know that there's a bunch more crap stacked onto that, but that is technically like part of like long-standing tradition in Christianity. That's nothing. That's nothing. Honestly, it's amazing that 3 of those men didn't at least find something that they could go, well, yeah, I get that's good, and it technically is in the Bible, you know?
Right.
Like that
Or
is true. It's just that nothing good is found exclusively in the Bible. You can find all of the good stuff anywhere else, but only the bad stuff there. Like, so yeah, personal support of biblical teachings. Hey, what do you mean by biblical teachings? Oh, well, sometimes in the Bible they say things like, don't be mean to people. So that's what we're going to teach.
yeah.
Yeah,
They have laws
that's
against murder. So,
right.
you know, I mean, that's
Right.
it's
Like
Christian.
he's saying nothing. He's saying nothing here and thinking it like proves his point. Just like when people in those studies say like, oh, well, look, all these people are happy in religious communities. And it's like, okay, well, who are you asking that's not in a religious community? And it's like, oh, all the people the religious community has been shunning and publicly shaming for months. Oh,
Yeah.
God, fuck me. I wonder why they're not as happy. It's hard for me to figure that out. Yeah, maybe I should go conduct another year-long study.
Right. Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah, and the ties to community too. That's just like,
Right.
you know, if you just do a study with them with, you know, in communities, it's like the exact same numbers.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. If you go
So
to places where there are like actual non-religious communities and stuff, and people gather regularly and hang out and laugh and joke and stuff, there's no difference. There's literally no difference. All these studies show is that, funny enough, when social creatures like people get together, we have a pretty decent time most of the time. Like, yeah,
yeah,
that's pretty reasonable. That
that's the
makes
whole
sense.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they're
you
like,
did.
so Christianity,
Yeah,
got it.
right,
I
right.
believe it now.
Right.
You know?
You didn't have to pay for a study. You could have given me $50. I'd have told you that. Like, hey man, why do you like hanging out with friends? It's like, oh, because I'm not lonely. Then we laugh and stuff. Like, thanks. I'll cash this check tomorrow.
Exactly. Never would have thought of that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, glad you said something. Jeez. They said Benjamin Franklin believed the Continental Congress should begin their session seeking the favor of God. Is that just saying to pray?
Yeah.
He's gonna pray
Yeah.
for-
And this
okay.
is where we start to get into this guy either has to be completely uninformed about this, or he's deliberately misinterpreting all of this. So this is
Right.
fun. This is true. This is a real quote. But the context is what's important. So
Okay.
surprise, a Christian doesn't provide context.
Yeah, I know. It's weird, right? It said, I have lived, sir, a long time, and the longer I live, the more convincing proofs I see of this truth that God governs in the affairs of men. And if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, it is probable that the empire can rise without his aid. We have been assured, sir, in the sacred writings that except the Lord build, they labor in vain that build it. Jesus Christ. I
Yeah,
don't like vulgar.
he's quoting a biblical passage, the Tower of Babel. Basically, he's talking about that's a line from there. So
Oh, okay.
So this is real. This is true. Franklin does stand up in the Continental Congress at one point, and he says this. And the reason that we have good reason to believe this is because not only do we have other individuals ultimately writing personal letters to family members describing this, ultimately we will have an account in Madison's diary, in his personal writings, that is an insert that comes in out of nowhere, clearly in Benjamin Franklin's handwriting, where Benjamin Franklin accounts this whole instance. Okay. He also proceeds to say that the letters that had been written before talking about the instance were incorrect. And that was kind of one reason why he wanted to do this. Franklin also writes his own personal notes as well on this and talks about this. So here's the context. Here's the context that's fascinatingly missing from this. And I'm going to give you the full context, folks, because I could stop halfway through in this context and let you think like my kind of bias has like a little bit more weighty side in this, but I'm going to give you the full context, okay? Because I'm not like this guy. So the context is Benjamin Franklin was known as the individual who was the great moderator. He was the person that came in and always found ways to find peaceful resolutions amongst people. And at this point in the day, no agreement had been come to. Everybody was yelling at each other. Tensions were flaring. People were pissed. Everybody was having a bad time. And basically, what Franklin is doing here is he is standing up and appealing to a time before now when individuals would gather to govern peacefully. And he's referencing the fact that those particular different, like the Connecticut, assembly or Virginia assembly, those types of places often began with a prayer. Now, that prayer was specifically one in the sense of we're all here to gather together to try to work together and figure this out. So we're not going to be pissy with each other. We're not going to hate each other because that's not what the Lord God wants. Yeah. So while I disagree with all the religious language, it's very much important to note that specifically what Franklin was doing here was trying to appeal to something that was so broad and overarching for every person present that they could put aside their differences and enmity towards each other to come together and get something passed and figure something out to actually make progress and benefit the world around them. So this is an instance of our government and the people who have created and run our government for centuries, right? Like wrestling with these concepts, right? What this actually shows is a much more beautiful thing than what he wants to make it out to be. He wants to make it out to be that Benjamin Franklin actually was this dude that secretly hardcore wanted to shove Jesus down people's throats. But in reality, this is a moment where we are seeing into the mind of a man who is truly trying to hold together something that could result in death around him if not held together. This is somebody that is in his last legs appealing to anything he can think of, basically. And he goes on to explain this in different ways. And criticisms come from other people that are there at the time. And ultimately, they decide not to do this. But the reason that they decide not to do this does have a bit more to do with the fact that they didn't have the money to pay for clergy at the time. And they felt these men felt that religion was a very structured thing. It was something that had to be done in a very strict manner. You couldn't just casually get up and just be like, "Hey, God, love you, bless us, done." Like, so like there's so much context to this. And he strips all of that fascinating beauty about our government having these lofty ideals and still not fully meeting up to them, but trying to figure out some compromise that allows us to make steps in the right direction, So there's so much fascination to this speech, and he takes all of that away, and then just again, this right here shows to me he either has no idea about the rest of this, because that it's just right next to all this stuff. For instance, it's right next to this particular little note that Franklin wrote, which says, "The convention except 3 or 4 persons, thought prayer unnecessary. For some reason, he forgot that context that Franklin purposefully wrote in there. Now, again, there's more to that than just, I could have just ended it right there and said, haha, see, screw you, Bob. But no, I gave you the full context, people, which is ultimately one of the big deciding factors had to do with whether or not they could pay the clergy, because they thought it needed to be such a structured thing. So again, this is a beautiful instance in history. Something that we can look back on and go, wow, look at all the different compromise, look at all the different, fighting for their sides and stuff. And hey, you know what? We found a way forward there. Maybe we can find another way forward in the future. But no, he uses this to be divisive. He uses this to be toxic. He uses this to be anti-American. That's ridiculous to me. So that's just one, folks. I'm telling you, every single one of these, I've got stuff like that. I'm super duper excited to go through every single one of them. That it's it's ridiculous. It's amazing. It's baffling how much he has distorted all of this.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like he just wants people to be like, Ben Franklin is a Christian national, or was a Christian nationalist, so just saying, write that down. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Ben Franklin also was found to have like 100 skeletons in his basement that was only dug up within the last handful of years, and nobody has any idea why. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they're doing there. But yes, in the house that Benjamin Franklin lived in throughout his life, we eventually, in the last few years, dug up a bunch of skeletons. I'm not kidding. Go look it up. Super real thing. Very strange.
Somebody needs to make a historical fiction movie about that, man. It's murderer.
Oh my gosh. Because they did it with Winnie the Pooh recently, Winnie the Pooh is now a serial killer. Like, they should totally make a Benjamin Franklin horror. Hey, any major studio out there, I'm putting this on the record right now. That is a copyright thing.
We came up,
Brent and I. We want our 10%. That's all we're asking. Do you think? All right.
Exactly. Jesus, that's hilarious. All right, let's see. Here, I gotta put these on. I always forget to do this when I have guests on. All right, let's see. So, let's see. Okay. The state constitutions. So now he's talking about the state constitutions. Now, as I understand it, the state constitutions, a lot of them were done before 1776. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's part of it. Also, it's important to note that we would not ratify the Constitution until later. So,
right. Okay. This is
meaning that these were null and void by the time that we, meaning that this was pre-America as a country. All of those things are important, but hey, whatever. Like, we didn't get this is important. This is important. Americans, United Statesians, listen to me. When we fought that wonderful, wonderful war for freedom that we tell ourselves was so beautiful, we were not a country. It's deeply important to me that everybody just know that fact. Like, it doesn't do much for you in life, but it's weird to me when I have grown adults say to me about, like, man, it's awesome, America, coming together to fight the Revolutionary War and stuff. I'm like, oh, we weren't, do you think we were a country? We weren't a country. We weren't. And that's important. Like, again, it doesn't get you much, in life. You'll never impress a date with it, but it is true. So yeah, again, it's amazing how wrong he is on this stuff. And this one's really easy. This one's super fun to talk about because it's very easy. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much at all to just be like, oh, he's wrong on this. This is dumb.
I don't know where he's at.
Yeah.
So that in order to attend the Constitutional Convention, each delegate had to meet qualifications established by his respective state. Qualifications that were only a few years old at the time. All religious tests for office and all but 2 were explicitly Christian. Here are the requirements contained in the Delaware Constitution in 1776. So Article 22, every person who shall be chosen a member of either house or appointed to any office or place of trust shall make and subscribe to the following declaration, to wit. I love that, to wit. I, first name, do profess the faith in God, the Father, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, and in the Holy Ghost. One God, blessed for everyone, and I do acknowledge the Holy Scriptures to the Old and New Testament to be given by divine inspiration. Constitution of Delaware, 1776.
So here's the fun part. Here's the fun part, folks. Again, just as a reminder, in case anybody's not sure about this, the reason that we have amendments to the Constitution is because in the process of creating the original document, many individuals felt as if the likelihood of leaving out important things was so high that we needed to go ahead and put in a method for changing it. Okay? From the beginning, this was a thought. There were many folk there looking at the stuff, thinking about the debates, and going, you know what? We're probably going to leave something out. So we might as well go ahead and have something in place to like make sure we can change it if we do that. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
It's literally different than the Bible. Like, unlike the Bible, right?
Right. Completely separate. Right. There's, there's no real way to know which one's better, I guess, but it's the first one. So with that, I think this is important. Okay. Because there's one thing that our founding fathers apparently did remember to put into the original document. A very particular little phrase here. Let's see here. Where is this? Ah, yes, here it is. Article 6. No religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. It's bafflingly stupid that he would point to something that was so clearly against what the founding fathers were going for. It's literally in the Constitution. It's in there, folks. It's like they didn't even forget that. They forgot to tell people, hey, oh yeah, wait a second. You shouldn't be just thrown in jail just for saying you don't like the current government. Yeah, we forgot to put that shit in. That was a big deal for us over in England. They forgot that. Okay? But they remembered to explicitly point back to all of these things that he's talking about and go, oh man, that was fucked. Let's not create our new system of government with that in it. That's what's so weird about these things that he's pointing to. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why he would. Right? Why would he bring this up? It doesn't make any sense. It's so stupid because it just does the exact opposite of it. It also gives me a chance to point out that my state, Tennessee, a very proud American state, has been and currently is violating the Constitution because our state constitution technically requires you to profess a belief in God. So we have religious tests for office in my state, and a few other states do as well. So currently, there are multiple states that are violating the Constitution, and the only reason they're still on the books, I mean, well, there's two reasons now. One is because most people just haven't cared, because in practice, it's never really been utilized in a while. But two, also because our Supreme Court has been taken over by far-right Christian nationalists. But yeah, again, it's baffling to me that he brought this up because it's literally in the Constitution, explicitly against this. Like, so I don't know what point he thinks it makes. He either again has to be. There is a middle ground. He could both be stupid and lying.
I think you're right. I didn't read through the whole thing, and now I think you're right. It's one or the other. It's one or the other. I was wrong. I'm going to update that position right there, just like the amendment. I'm going to amend my claim. earlier.
That's right. That's right. Again, something that religion doesn't seem to do very often. Yeah.
No.
Because like if I pointed any of this stuff out to him, I feel very confident that very much like watching Kent Hovind get pointed out for like the 14th million time, that's not what evolution is. Like he just won't change his
It's a
talking
religion.
points.
It's
Yeah.
now it's a religion. And
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you never seen a dog turn into a dinosaur, have you? Well, no.
It takes blind faith to believe that.
Yeah.
Uh,
I don't believe that. I don't think that happens.
No. Oh God, it's ridiculous. All right. So now it says the original intent of separation of church and state.
This
'cause
is
it's
great.
Other than separation of church and state.
Mhm.
So I suppose. Okay. So I am amazed by the number of people who are convinced the wall of separation of church and state is part of the United States Constitution. Over 69% of Americans believe this phrase is in the First Amendment. It is. What the fuck are you talking? If not in the, I mean, not the exact phrase, but
That's the thing. Just being a super pedantic asshole, I'll have to say, okay, yeah. I mean, like technically that's wrong. And again, just like that thing about we weren't technically a country in the Revolutionary War. Yes, it is true. The words themselves are not in there, but the sentiment again is extremely clear.
yeah, they just use different words to say the exact. It just
Yes.
says you shall not make any laws respecting
Yes.
a religion. What do you
Right.
think that means? Like,
Right.
what else could that possibly?
Right.
And it's the first line of the first clause of the first fucking amendment.
Right.
You know?
It's like technically you said that I couldn't have cookies, but you didn't say that I couldn't eat cake. And it's like, oh yeah, I mean, you're right. I did not say don't eat cookies or cake, but you know what I fucking meant.
It's implied that no sweets. Okay, should we just? So is it Thomas Jefferson's letter to Danbury? Well, now hold on. Now, Thomas Jefferson is famously a deist. Right?
Yeah.
That is. I mean, he even
very
in the
very
Bible.
yes took the New Testament, so cut the book in half, just got rid of the Old Testament, even though you can't do that. Just pointing that out. If Jesus really is who he says he is and stuff, like you can't really do that. But then went so far as to take the New Testament and cut down every reference to Jesus's divinity and then published that Bible. It is a thing. It's a historical record. Again, I'm confused why he brought Jefferson up at all, but this specifically is also confusing to me because it's just like, again, I'm not sure what point he's trying to make, but I don't think it makes the point he hopes it does.
I was gonna say okay, because a bunch of these were like I felt like I was like I think he's confused about this because this isn't one. Okay, because
Yes,
I was
he
like,
is.
am I wrong? Am I reading it wrong?
No,
Okay.
he is confused.
All right, good. So in 1801, many states still maintained official state churches. The state church in Connecticut was the Congregationalist denomination, and that state will collect, and that state still collected taxes to support it. Baptists in Connecticut every year had to petition the state to allow their own taxes to go to their own church, but local authorities often delayed their petition, denied them legal standing, and made their lives difficult because they were not Congregationalists. So they petitioned the state to change the laws and wrote to the newly elected president asking him to support their cause. President Jefferson replied to the Danbury Baptists on January 1st, 1802.
So again, just to start off, not the most important thing I'm going to say, but that context is correct. And it's weird to me that he would use this because he is essentially pointing to a time in the past in American history where a particular religion was asserting its authority to screw with the free practice of other people's religion. That's what
And
he's pointing to.
And he's saying that see, it's so like it makes it look so bad. Like
It's confusing.
Like, that's you. That's you. What do you?
Right. That's right. That's what I'm saying. It's like go watch any one of his thousands of appearances on Fox News and OANN and stuff. Like, you can see that is exactly what he is advocating for. And again, he's bringing up an instance in history where what we have is this complicated mesh of personal beliefs and how do we create a government that's like really for all the people, and like that kind of compromise, and like figuring things out and moving towards a more, you know, meaningful and beneficial society for all of us. And he's trying to paint it as if it's this super disgusting, divisive thing.
Yeah,
It's weird. It's weird.
It's quite confusing because it's
Yes.
like it almost feels like he's trying to make a case against himself. Like I feel like
know.
he flipped the coin by accident and started, you know, he did like the Donald Duck and Bugs Bunny thing where he's like, you know, flips the words and then they're like saying the thing to them.
Rabbit seed, duck seed, rabbit
Yeah,
seed.
exactly. That's what happened in this line here, because it's like, oh shit, wait, I was supposed to be that's what I'm forget all that. I was arguing for that. Just forget I said any of that stuff.
Right.
It's like, my goodness. Okay. So he responded to him in 1802. The letter says, in part, I contemplate with sovereign reverence that act of the whole American people, which declared that their legislators should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. He believed in this principle and thought states should likewise adopt it, although he acknowledged that the federal government had no authority to force a state to do so. Jefferson did not envision that the First Amendment would be used as rationale to separate our nation from its Christian foundation.
So this is great, and here's why. It's
What-
because the last half of the next to last sentence, where it starts, although he acknowledged, and then that entire last sentence, I just literally have no fucking idea where he's getting that from, dude. Like, I'm just being completely honest. I genuinely was like, oh man, maybe I don't remember this letter that well. You know,
Right? Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong on this. It's been a while, okay, since I read it word for word. Go look it up, people. It's like 3 fucking paragraphs. There is not much in there. Where is he basing this on, that he said, yeah, Jefferson acknowledged that the federal government had no authority to force the state to follow the Constitution? That's literally the entire point of it. And then the next part where he says Jefferson did not envision that the First Amendment we use as a rationale to separate our nation from its Christian foundation. That sentence just doesn't make sense to me.
It's like, yeah, because he almost made the case, like, other than what you just talked about, he's saying that they didn't have the authority to do so. Although, why the fuck would you have it? That makes no sense.
Right. Why they were writing specifically to the president at the time to get him to force the state to do something. It's so baffling that he said that. I have literally no idea, because I genuinely was like, oh, maybe I forgot something in the letter to the Danbury Baptist. Like, does he say that in there? No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. And nowhere else does he ever say that. Guys, don't forget, didn't Jefferson do the Louisiana Purchase? Wasn't he the motherfucker that was like, the federal government definitely has the authority to just buy a shit ton of land and kick other nations off of it? So I'm pretty sure he felt that the federal government had the authority to enforce its laws in its own states.
Right?
The Constitution is just a suggestion. Yeah. Good point, God. Got me. Good point. Good point. It's just guidelines, you know. You don't really have to follow them, right?
Yeah, you know, it's it's like speed limits, you know, they just, you know, nobody cares.
Yeah, just there in case you wanted to follow it. Yeah. But then again, that next thing, Jefferson did not envision that the First Amendment be used as a rationale to separate our nation from its Christian foundation. That sentence sounds like it's explaining something to you folks, but it doesn't. And here's why. Because basically what it's saying is, like, Jefferson still thought there was good shit in Christianity. Yes. Again, the vast majority of people are not disagreeing that somewhere in the fucking New Testament, it says nice things. Nobody's disagreeing with that. And nobody's disagreeing that, yeah, those nice things generally being put into practice are cool. Like, there is a period of time, at least once, where it kind of seems like Jesus is not for public execution. That's not really what that story is about. That's not really what the whole, you cast the first stone thing is about. But if somebody reads that and then goes, hey, maybe we just shouldn't execute people in public. Yeah, that's a good idea. I think we should also put that into practice in our law. Yeah, me too.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. This doesn't make any sense because nowhere did Jefferson ever say anything like for or against this. And also, it's just as vague and worthless as the thing before where he's like, 52 out of 55 said that they thought there were good things in Christianity. That's like, yeah. Dipshit. Like, nobody, like, what the hell? What point do you think, how are you winning in this argument, man?
Right. Yeah. And it's like, and it seems to me too that like this whole letter and everything was like meant to combat the obvious problem that's caused by Christian nationalism that he was just talking about up here, and then he's like, oh, okay, well, we need the separation of church and state, then we'll make sure to write that in. But he's making it like it's like flipsies. Like, I don't know how he's doing. And his last sentence is just like, I know that all says that, but not though. Like, that's what it seems
exactly.
Like, what
exactly.
the fuck? What?
Exactly,
like,
dude. Right. It is confusing how wrong he is because he's flipping the context of all of these and making them seem like it's some evil thing, but like even the evil thing that he's like talking about like isn't really exactly it's amazing how somebody can be so wrong. It really is. And he's about to do it even more, people. It's really great. It's fascinating. Like, if you think this has been ridiculous thus far, keep watching.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And one thing, it reminds me of like those arguments where you could totally tell that this is only convincing to somebody who's obviously already believing all this shit, right? Like, the purpose isn't to convince somebody that doesn't know. The purpose is to reinforce what people already want to believe in the first place. You know what I mean?
It is cherry picking stuff so that people can confirm their biases and quickly cite stuff to people where they are incapable of looking it up and getting the true information. This is what a lot of the religious apologists do. They give you this one thing and then you just like run with it, and then 10 years down the road you finally figure out, oh, all of that is made up. Actually, like, all of that is made up, and what you know about this is just false.
Because they're religious people. They wouldn't lie. Right. They're good men. They're good Christian people.
We have no documentation to support religious people lying. I think that I stand by that.
And if you don't believe it, it's because they magically something.
That's right. It's the devil. It's the devil tricking you.
So this one says early court rulings. Consider what early court rulings said about the relationship between government and Christianity in countless cases during the first 140 years of our nation. The judiciary reaffirmed. I always sound drunk when you say judiciary.
Oh, it's a weird word.
Reaffirmed our country's Christian foundation and even encouraged government support of the Christian faith.
Yeah, this is just
okay.
I think what's worth pointing out here is a couple of things, real quick. One, like, we have done things incorrect in the past, and you don't get to point to the incorrect things in the past and say, like, oh, but look at it then. Like, for instance, there are court cases that still exist in the Library of Congress because they are a record where our Supreme Court at one time literally looked at human beings and said, oh, because you're dark, you're property. Those are court cases, people. So don't forget that we fuck up. That's deeply, deeply important. And the point is to correct those mistakes. Okay. Right. Another thing that's important is
our current situation with the Supreme Court.
Exactly. The current situation. And to also, I've noticed these polls, and I just am happy about this. More and more people are starting to not give the Supreme Court such an intense reverence and so forth, as if they are fucking gods. And we need to remember that, people. The Supreme Court is an accountable branch of our government. Okay. So, yeah, they're not just gods who get to do whatever the fuck they want. And they don't just get to like decide things. Okay. That's not how our government is supposed to be run. So stop giving a shit so much about the Supreme Court. And then finally, the concept of like the Christian Foundation again. Really, what these people are saying is so broad and watered down as to not be in any way, shape, or form a point for this Bobby guy. But I would like to point out that I do really dislike when both really scientifically minded people and legal minded people say these flowery words and these vague like euphemisms and stuff, because then motherfuckers like this take it and run with it. So when a goddamn physicist goes out there and says the word about divine, even if they give 30 minutes of context before and after, the hardcore religious will completely discount everything else and just latch on to that word. So, to my very smart, very, very well-trained, scientific, legal, academic-minded folks out there, please, for fuck's sake, stop using these flowery words. Just use the real words and explain them to people. We have better words already. Please stop doing it, because you're giving ammo to assholes who are fighting to make your life worse. So that's my plea.
It's like using the word spiritual in
Yes.
and stuff, and yeah, and then they're like, "See, Deepak Chopra is right. I knew it."
Exactly, and it's
know?
just like, oh my gosh, again, like you have these people that say that casually and colloquially, and it's like he doesn't in any way, shape, or form mean like ghosts, but he's using the word spirit right here to get across this point. But just don't use the word spirit. Use another word. Take 5 extra seconds and figure out it. Go get a fucking
Essence.
thesaurus.
Just say essence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So, right. So consider what early court rulings say about the relationship between. Oh, did I already read that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we're on the one.
Right. Okay. So this is 1799. In the case of Runkle, I like that word.
I know.
V. Weinmiller, the Supreme Court of Maryland. I was going to say Maryland because that's just how I was pronouncing things in that little line. Said in this decision, by our form of government, the Christian religion is the established religion, and all sects and denominations of Christians are placed upon the same equal footing and are equally entitled to protection in their religious liberty.
So here we go. Once again, it's fascinating to me how he is twisting this scenario to be something particularly strange, because the way he is laying this out again is very confusing, especially with the actual context of what's going on. What happened was basically there was a dude. He was going to be a minister again. This church was like, oh shit, no, bro, you're not our denomination, so we're not going to do that. We're going to kick you out. Ultimately, the Supreme Court would rule, hey, no, because all sects and denominations of Christians are placed upon the same equal footing and are equally entitled to protection in their religious liberty. What he said at the beginning, by our form of government, the Christian religion is the established religion, has 2 important contexts to it. One, Thomas Jefferson explicitly disagreed with this. That we have record, which again is baffling to me why the fuck he said that thing earlier about old Tommy J. I don't understand. I don't understand why he said that, because Thomas Jefferson explicitly disagreed with that sentiment, okay, from the Supreme Court justice at the time. Now, Joseph Story also gives us context as to what he is explaining about there. And what he is explaining about there is that Christianity as a whole is something that is very much commonplace in our government. It is very much a part of our culture, especially at the time. That's what he's saying. When he says the words, the Christian religion is the established religion, it's that shitty, flowery language I was just pissed about, folks. And that's why I hate it, because this is what people do. But again, all of that is very well documented. And if you just go look up this case, you will very easily find all of this explanation. So I don't know how he missed it unless it's purposeful, because it is so obvious that nothing that he is presenting here is in any way, shape, or form a point for his side. But again, it's fascinating. I thought some of this rang familiar to me, and I was like, yeah, but that seems weird. And so I looked it up, and it was like, oh yeah, no, this guy is just completely fucking wrong. He's just wrong about this entire context, because he picks out that one fucking line, which again debunks something that he said earlier in this article, and is like one of the smallest aspects of this case. It is one of the smallest, least interesting aspects of this case. And he just focuses in on it because it says the one couple of words that he likes.
Did he mean like the majority of the people? That's
basically
like, he's saying like, hey,
yes,
we all like, hey, we can all at least have the common
basically
ground.
it would be as if he said like it'd be basically as if he said like, well, so like by the way that we construct our government, Christians make up the majority of it. Like that,
Right.
That's really what he's saying. And again, he clarifies that. Clarifies that.
It's
Like it's so weird. And again, it also explicitly, Jefferson came out and said, I disagree with this first part about Christianity being the established religion. And then yeah. So again, I don't know why. I don't know why he's bringing this up. It's confusing. The next one is also weird.
The Holy Trinity, right? That's where we're at.
Yeah. The Holy Trinity.
1892. Okay, so that was so nearly 100 years later, the United States Supreme Court reaffirmed our nation's Christian foundation in Church of the Holy Trinity versus the United States in 1892. In this ruling, the Supreme Court declared no purpose of action against religion can be imputed to any legislation, state or national, because what? State or national? Is that? Am I saying that wrong? Anyway,
no, it's an old usage of the word national, as in like somebody that is born in the nation, a national.
Oh, got it. Okay, I was like, what national? What a national?
It's
because
basically saying like citizen, like.
You can't have national becauses over here. Like,
Old English sucks, man.
Okay, this is a religious people. Okay, so
this is a fascinatingly important case, and here's why. Because Christian nationalists are dickheads about it. And again, we have flowery language that, while interpreted later on and clarified by the individual who made it, they will forever completely not give a shit about it. Okay, so what this case was about was a church in the United States was trying to bring over a pastor from another country. Okay, and they were trying to get the proper documentation from the federal government to allow this non-US citizen to come live and work in our country. This is something that is very important for throughout our entire country, especially right at the beginning, because one of the big things the founding fathers were concerned about was that somebody who was not truly American, not born in the country, not lived here for a very long time, doesn't hold the same ideals of liberty and freedom of expression and stuff, that they would come over and try to subvert our government, essentially as agents of the UK and other countries that knew that we were very fragile at the time. So our government puts in place this very explicit this very explicit understanding that you're not allowed to just go out and just bring people from other countries over to do work for you and shit, right?
Okay.
Here's the thing, though. The Supreme Court ultimately ruled that kind of seems particularly contrary to the way that Congress has continued to conduct itself because of a bunch of different things that we can point to, right? So basically what the Supreme Court was saying in this case was, it seems contrary to the intent of the law that Congress passed to explicitly bar religious individuals in this instance. So basically they're saying, hey, we know what the words of the law say, but we're going to imbue our own meaning on this based on the clear practices of the Congress, right? So this is where we start getting into judicial interpretation. Again, which this other aspect of it really makes me confused as to why he brought this up. This is something that somebody like Antonin Scalia, a hardcore Christian right individual, would completely disagree with. This is completely contrary to what this individual, Bobby Jeff, whatever, would want out of this. This is the activist judges that are making laws through their opinions and stuff. Okay, but again, what is super another fascinating little history of this, another fascinating little bit context here. Guess who comes out and clarifies? This exact dickhead comes out and clarifies not only that statement, but the statement that he said in the decision about us being a Christian nation. He explicitly comes out in a 1905 book titled "The United States a Christian Nation," and he writes, "But in what sense can it be called a Christian nation? Not in the sense that Christianity is the established religion or that people are in any matter compelled to support it. On the contrary, the Constitution specifically provides that the Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Neither is it Christian in the sense that all of its citizens are either in fact or in name Christian."
So it's not either of the things that usually would be. So how did he?
In fact, it goes on to say, in fact, the government as a legal organization is independent of all religions. Nevertheless, I'll give you the final context, people, because again, I could just always cut all this off and make it look even better for my side. But giving you the actual truth around this BS that this guy is spouting still works in my favor. That's what I'm saying. Nevertheless, we constantly speak of this republic as a Christian nation. In fact, as the leading Christian nation of the world. This popular use of the term certainly has significance. It is not a mere creation of the imagination. It is not a term of derision, but has substantial basis, one which justifies its use. Again, he does technically say those words, but the entire clarification that he gives waters this down to such a degree that once again, brother, I am baffled that this asshole used this. I am baffled by it. So I don't know. We just have to keep going, but it's very confusing that he pointed this one out. Because again, the entire context is just outright wrong.
Right. That's insane. Oh man, I love it. It's crazy. So this one's the People versus Ruggles.
This is a fun one too.
In the decision of the People versus Ruggles, 1811, the Chief Justice of New York Supreme Court affirmed, "Nor are we bound by any expression in the Constitution, as some have strangely supposed, either not to punish at all or to punish indiscriminately the like attacks upon the religion of Muhammad, Muslims, and of the Grand Lama, i.e. the Buddhists. And for this plain reason, the case assumes that we are a Christian people and the morality of the country is deeply engrafted upon Christianity and not upon the doctrines of worship of those imposters, i.e. false religions like Islam and Buddhism."
So I'd like to point everybody back to my previous statement about how we get things wrong in the past, and pointing back to those wrong things is not a justification. But I will now go on to explain the rest of this context, which is this was the first time in United States history that a human being was convicted of blasphemy charges. So the context behind this is one of disgusting toxicity from religion. Okay. Blasphemy laws are an absolute fucking joke. Blasphemy is not a crime. It does not in any way, shape, or form harm anybody. It only harms their fake God. Okay. So, which is to say it doesn't. So here's why I'm confused about this. Here's why I'm confused about why he brought this up. Well, first off, I do think it's worth pointing this out. Our friend Mr. Ruggles was convicted for stating that, quote, Jesus Christ was a bastard and his mother must be a whore. So thank you, Mr. Ruggles. I appreciate your work. And yeah, Jefferson Wood. You're very right. Tommy J. Yeah. But here's what's fascinating about this case. A couple of different aspects. So again, one, it's the first time in United States history that we convicted somebody of blasphemy, which is disgusting and fucked up. And there are many countries around the world right now that still have blasphemy laws on the books, and all of them should be gotten rid of. Now that I've said that, I will now tell you that Kent, our lovely fellow here who is talking about who's bringing this case, right? He believed that the Constitution of New York provided free exercise and enjoyment of religious profession and worship without discrimination or preference. So he agreed to all of that. What he didn't like, though, was that Ruggles was saying bad shit about Christians, okay? And the ultimate decision will come down with this quote as one of the main reference points as to argue why it was okay to blaspheme Muslims, the Islamic faith, or the Buddhist faith, because they are not established throughout the society and culture like Christianity is. See, basically what they were saying is the same thing that many hardcore Islamists in Pakistan are saying right now, which is, if you say bad things about Muhammad, that will make us also sad that we have to kill you in the streets. That's the argument. That's disgusting and nonsensical. Here's why, once again, I'm confused as to why this was being used. Because this particular case is explicitly cited multiple times afterwards as being flat fucking wrong. As being found incorrectly. That is how this case is known and used throughout history. So I don't know why he's bringing it up for this weird point. Again, it's just confusing. It's just confusing why he's bringing it up, because none of the things that he thinks it's saying is what it's saying. And the actual things that it's saying are completely against and like the ramifications of it. Again, this is commonly cited as a case that's like, oh yeah, that's one we got it wrong in. Like, we did a bad job then. Thank fuck we're doing better. So once again, folks, if you are concerned that this guy will get anything correct, please do not hold your breath. You have no reason to be scared. It will all be just this bad.
It's like, exactly. Oh my God, that's insane. So this is Vidal versus Gerard's Executioners, 1844. The case of Vidal versus Gerard's Executioners is interesting. The Supreme Court said, why may not the Bible, and especially the New Testament, without note or comment, be read and taught as a divine revelation in the college? Its general precepts expounded, its evidences explained, and its glorious principles of morality inculcated.
Yeah, like just like to bring into form and like to make happen. And so basically he's saying like wouldn't it wouldn't that just make everybody just have all these glorious principles and be super duper moral and stuff?
Okay. So, likewise, the court
Mhm.
ruled that other religions should not be taught. It is unnecessary for us, however, to consider what would be the legal effect of a device in Pennsylvania for the establishment of a school or college for the propagation of Judaism or deism or any other form of infidelity. Such a case is not to be presumed to exist in a Christian country.
So again, I'm confused why he's bringing this up, because it again just doesn't say anything that he thinks it does. So the context of this case is that this guy, Gerard, he died. And when he died, he had a shit ton of money and no family to give it to. And in his will, he said, I want this money to go to a school that gets built. And one of my specific provisions is I do not want clergy members to be hired as teachers in a public school. Okay? That's what the fella did. Guy died, and after his death, in the legal document of what to do with his shit, it was build a public school, don't hire clergy. So here's what's fascinating about what he decided to pull out for this. He didn't mention that the Supreme Court upheld the right. He doesn't mention that. The Supreme Court sided with Gerard here. They sided with the man that said, do not hire clergy at my school. I'm giving the money for it. It's a public school. Don't hire clergy there. Okay. The Supreme Court upheld that. And the first little quote that he uses just does not at all say the thing that he's thinking it does. He's trying to present the first case of why may not the Bible and especially the New Testament without note or comment be read and taught as a divine revelation in the college. He's using that as if to say the Supreme Court at the time was saying, hell yes, we should be doing this. But in fact, what the Supreme Court was saying, what the Chief Justice was writing in his assent to this case, was that the argument from Vidal basically said, if we don't hire clergy, how will our children know good morals without learning them? And the Supreme Court Justice is saying, why can't we still teach good morals without it being a clergyman? That's what he's saying here. He's saying that just because clergy members are not going to be staff does not mean that the good things that are found in religion can't be inculcated into the morality of these children. That's what he's saying here, okay? Now, he also goes a little bit farther so as to make the case that Christianity is involved in common law in the United States. Common law is this just long-standing tradition of, hey, this is how court stuff has been done for a really long time, dating back to like really merry old England and shit. So again, what he is saying here in the shit flowery language that I hate, but what he is actually saying there is, yes, a shit ton of principles that are good and found within the Bible are a part of our system of laws. And again, yes, that is true, but that is true for Hinduism, that is true for Buddhism, that is true for Judaism, that is true for Islam. It is true for all of these because it's not hard to get some things right. It would be fascinating if people throughout the centuries didn't get things right, like, hey, don't go kill your neighbor and steal their cattle, because then you wouldn't have a society to pass on the fucking rules to. So again, that's what he's saying in that first quote. Now, here's what he's saying in the second quote, which is even better because he uses this as an opportunity to attack these other religions. So he literally starts this quote with, likewise, the court ruled that other religions should not be taught. No, that is not in the fucking slightest what this ruling is saying. What he is saying here, it is unnecessary for us, however, to consider what would be the legal effect of this device for the establishment of another school in these forms, okay? What he is saying is the case before us right now is very narrowly focused. And if the court were to make a decision on what would happen about an establishment of a school or college for propagating Judaism or deism, that would be inappropriate based on the facts of the case in front of us.
Yeah.
And this last little bit that he says, such a case is not to be presumed to exist in a Christian country. Again, what he is saying there is actually, we all kind of know this probably ain't going to be a thing we have to worry about. We don't have a lot of Jews or deists, right? That's what he's saying. He's saying, he is saying that the doll wants us to go further, but doing so would be improper and a violation of our duties. And let's be honest, probably not something we're going to have to deal with. So again, he has completely twisted everything about this. And I'm not making any of this up. You just go type in the fucking case onto Google, you guys. And the very first thing is just this long, in-depth discussion of this and very clearly lays out all of this. It's like, yeah, that's what he technically said, but like he explains more and this is what he's getting at. And this particular thing is actually referencing this. So it's at this point in the article I was like, okay, he has to knowingly be doing this because
there's no other way. Yeah.
Those two quotes are well explained. And for him to use them like this and say that this is what they're actually meaning is again, there's no way. If you just go look up those quotes, you will find them and you will find an explanation. So he has to know. He has to know that.
It's
like,
yeah, it's just the words. He doesn't care. It's the same way with the Bible. You know what I mean? They're like, because they do the like the same thing with the Bible. That's well, I know that's what it says, but that's not what it means. Okay, it means to not, whatever. It means you don't have to do works. Okay, that's just the fruit. But it says to look for the fruit, which would be the works. Which shit. Hold on, we're going back and forth.
Some of this doesn't make sense. I swear. No, it's right. Hang on. Eat a cracker real quick. Eat a cracker. Drink some juice. You'll feel the Holy Spirit.
Faith through works. No, I mean not through. Fuck. Oh Jesus. So this is part 3. We'll do like one more section and then we'll wrap it after that.
Okay. Let me see if I can pick which one I think is the one like that might be the best.
These are a lot.
Okay, let's do the last one, the Stone v. Graham, because I think that one's so. The other ones are really, really quick. Because for instance, like I can just say a couple of these, what he's trying to do is he's trying to give you the impression that the court has had some like weird fight against Christianity or something. But again, he obfuscates all these things. In one of them, he says like, oh, the court just didn't let people say this nice little poem. But the poem was explicitly crafted by individuals who admitted as such to changing the words so that it didn't say God. So like it's blatant what these people are doing. And the court called them out on it and was like, hey, man, look, like the way the law is really supposed to be practiced is like, you're not supposed to have the public government, the public sphere be something that's pushing a religion. And they're like, well, it's not pushing a religion. And they're like, yeah, but see, like you kept the same fucking prayer. You just took out the word God. And so you are really still just trying to push your religion. And the people were like, well, I mean, kinda. And the court was like, yeah, that's fucking wrong. So like,
exactly the same as today. That's what
yeah,
you're saying.
exactly. Except for some, except for a couple of things. But yeah, like, and I'll reference that with this last one. But yeah, like it's so weird that he cites these other cases, because again, they are explicit examples of somebody trying to go around what the law actually, the established law is, so as to push their religion. And the people are explicit about it. So again, I'm surprised that he picked these. I'm surprised that he picked these cases.
It reminds me of the we, you know, at the meetings or whatever, we're like, oh no, at school, that's right. They're like, we're gonna give a minute of meditation before you
Yes.
know the class starts or whatever. So you can have 1 minute and anybody can say or think whatever they want in that minute. But you just do what you think is right.
Right. And
You know?
it's like people have such a short-term memory on stuff. So many of the private Christian schools in the United States, especially on the Eastern Coast, you guys, go look up when they were founded. Go look up when they were founded and go look up some of the people that were talking about this at the time. It's not a coincidence that they were founded right as desegregation was happening. They weren't hiding it back then. They explicitly were saying, we're trying to get our good Christian white kids away from these black kids. So like this, again, they tell us that. And then like a decade goes by and then people are like, oh shit, this is a racist institution. And they're like, no, not at all. We love Jesus. Why would you think racism? Just like for years and years and years, they do this thing where they're like, you got to love Jesus. You got to love Jesus. You got to love Jesus. And then they're like, you can't say Jesus. And they're like, you got to love, you know, him. You got to love the divine one, you know? And it's like, you're saying the same thing. You're saying the same thing.
And all the atheists are like, oh, fuck. So we're just like, well, you can love a doorknob.
Okay. Yeah, like, fuck you, man.
Oh, God. Okay, so this was Stone v. Graham, 1980.
He says this is one of the most outlandish applications of the doctrine. This one is amazing, okay? And that's why I said we should end on this one, because it is ridiculous. The fact that he uses the word outlandish, again, I don't know if he knows what that word means. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why he's presenting this one.
It's stuff that you would do out to sea because you're not on the land.
You're outlandish.
Outlandish.
That's good. That's good. That's smart. I like that. I like that. It's a
really
boating
nautical.
term.
Nautical thing. But so perhaps one of the most outlandish applications of the doctrine of separation of church and state occurred in 1980. Schools in Kentucky had copies of the Ten Commandments posted in their hallways, paid for with private donations. Each copy had a disclaimer at the bottom saying, the secular application of the Ten Commandments is clearly seen in its adoption at the fundamental legal code of Western civilization and the common law of the United States.
I just pause real quick, 2 quick things, and then I'll let you get to that, and then I'll go on my rant. But first off, I would like to point this out. That statement is wrong. It's just incorrect. It is flat out incorrect. Okay. It is just demonstrably untrue in its, yes. You have been known to love some doorknobs. But in the broad sense that we have touched on multiple times in these flowery languages, okay, there are some basic things in the Ten Commandments that in general, many governments have been like, yeah, that's a good thing. Like, for instance, don't go around murdering people. That's not okay. Again, the fact that the Ten Commandments got that right is honestly, it is absolutely nothing. It would be more surprising that they didn't get it right. Okay. And then here's the second thing I want to say, which is violating federal law and then putting a disclaimer that basically tries to make it seem like you're not violating federal law does not mean shit. You don't just get to walk up to a building, light it on fire, and then just post a little sticky note next to it that says, this isn't arson. That's not how it fucking works. It doesn't make any sense. So I just wanted to point that out. He says that as if like, oh, this made it all okay. Like they were clearly violating federal law, but they had this little disclaimer at the bottom that said they weren't. Like,
Yeah, it reminds me of like what like the what turned into like the salts or whatever the whatever it was, the stuff that they smoke, and it used to be it was they go like, oh, this is incense. You're gonna sell it as incense. But it looked like it was just like weed. Like it was this little. Obviously, you're supposed to stick it in a pipe and smoke it. But they're like, hey, but that label's there, so I don't know why we put all those chemicals in it that make you high. That's just
I have no idea. Yeah. Hey, look. Hey. If that happens to you, man, hey, that happens to you. But all I know is it makes my bathroom smell great. You know,
it smells good.
Like, yeah.
It is literally the same tactic. Man.
It's so stupid. Try that next time you get arrested, folks. Just be like, no, officer, I swear, I didn't murder this guy. Like, you know, look, I wrote it right there. Like, this is not murder.
This
like,
is
there you go.
It's a disclaimer, you know.
Fine.
Jesus. Oh, that's awesome. So, wait.
The Supreme Court declared.
Okay. The Supreme Court declared if the posted copies of the Ten Commandments are to have any effect at all, it will be to induce the school children to read, meditate upon, perhaps to venerate and obey the Ten Commandments. However, okay, desirable this might be as a matter of private devotion, it is not a permissible state objective under the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment.
Right.
Okay,
So
yeah,
the context here is there was a person who had a lot of money who got these very nice printed 10 commandments and then gave them to all the public schools in Kentucky and said, please post this. It's so pretty. And the Supreme Court said, hey, nobody gets to do that with their religion. That's not okay. Nobody gets to do that because if the school, a public entity, an authoritative public entity, if they are posting these religious messagings, it is in effect allowing and explicitly stating that they are preferencing one religion over the other. It is, in fact, in practice, pushing religion on people. Okay? That is what this is saying. So
yeah, I mean, it's almost like if like imagine them dealing with a Muslim teacher who was like, "Hey, we're going to use these surahs for spelling. They're all spelled correctly. We're going to use it for spelling. Now read the surah and then spell out the words, whatever. You know, they would freaking lose their damn minds, man. Like, you know,
exactly. And that's the whole point. Is that the idea of separation of church and state is explicitly so that all of the big baddies that every religious person has in their mind, that is really at the end of the day just other devout religious people, because that's the fucking game they all play. The Christians are running around constantly freaking out about the devil and all the Muslims and Jews around them, and the Muslims and the Jews feel the same way about the Christians. So like they're all in that nonsensical fairy tale world, okay? And so let me play upon your fears here for a second, Christian nationalists. Get ready. Because if you disagree with this ruling, guess who gets to come in tomorrow? The devout Muslim. And they're going to be teaching your kids how to pray 5 times a day. Get ready. Get ready to have kids openly taking the Shahada in public. You know what? Taking the Shahada with what do you call this? Oh my gosh, with direction and explicit encouragement from public school officials. Like, for instance, the recent Supreme Court case that gave the authority to a public school coach to hold prayer vigils in the middle of the freaking field, forcing people to accept and promote his specific religious interpretation. Something that one of our Supreme Court justices in her dissent explicitly points out The Supreme Court fabricated details, outright made up facts for the case so that they could get it pushed their way. So be prepared. Be prepared, you Christian nationalists, because that's what's coming next. And I am super excited to see every single public school soon having a very large Baphomet statue put there by the Satanic Temple. I am so proud that my Christian nationalist friends out there are joining hand in me as we put up statues of Buddha, statues of Baphomet. I mean, abso-freaking-lutely everything. So yeah,
yeah.
I feel like that one really just it was amazing that he chose to end on such a strong point, in my opinion. But again, it's a strong point in the opposite direction
against him. Yeah,
Yes,
I feel like he forgot who was. I don't know. I mean, but it's so weird because it's like I said, like the people that are going to read this and be convinced by it are the people that already think this shit anyway.
Yes,
It's not meant to. It's not like the what is it? The mything in action. No, not mything in action. I'm sorry. The founding myth.
Oh yeah.
Why Christian national? It's not like actually making a case, you know, and actually breaking down all the. I
pulled it out just for this moment so that I could look cool like that.
Yeah, I've been listening to it too, so I can't. I'm not going to pull it up and show you. That'd be weird, you know. But I could is my point. Okay.
Yeah. No. I get that. I get that.
But yeah, and so he's actually making a case. This dude's just trying to just reinforce. It's the same thing that propaganda does. It's just like when they say stuff that doesn't really. It's just like when somebody says, "Yeah," and they'd have to pee in a bathroom next to my daughter, and you're just like, "Okay, yeah, but you got it. You're supposed to keep. You need to make a case why that's
right."
You know, like
you have to
just say that.
You have to keep explaining, like, why is that problematic, right?
Yeah. Exactly. It's like
it again, it start to finish, that whole article is just, again, it is either he is super uninformed, like, and that totally is possible, that he just genuinely has no idea, like, about anything that he cited, and like somebody just randomly gave him those quotes and was like, yeah, this is real, like it's a thing. Or in the process of compiling these citations, he explicitly ignored all of this stuff that was against him. Like, because every single one of those, you guys, every single freaking one of those, I showed you how wrong he is on all of it. And it took me no time. It took no effort. Like, Brent sent this article to me like just a few hours before we started. And I'll be honest, because it makes me look like a schmuck, but it makes him look worse. I didn't even read it for like 2 or 3 hours. Like 2 hours went by. I just like looked at it and was like, yeah, okay, we haven't done that one before. And then just like went back to sleep for a bit. And then in like 30 minutes was able to compile all of this. It's fascinating. It's fascinating how completely, again, either misinformed or just flat out dishonest this guy is.
They're always banking on their audience not looking anything up.
Yes.
And they're always right.
Yes.
You know, unfortunately.
Yes. Time after freaking time. Like, oh my gosh. It's just, it's so confusing how much people actively just don't want to be educated on just the most basic stuff. It just takes like 5 extra seconds. It's not that hard. And again, I was blown away.
It'd make their whole worldview crumble. So they they'd rather feel right than be right. You know what I mean? That sense. But well, thank you so much, Elliot, for coming on and hanging out. That was awesome. That was a good
fun,
one,
man. Yeah. I have a good time. I always love hanging out. So, and I don't always, like I said, I think last time I was on, I don't always get to go through stuff like this. With a lot of the stuff that I do. And so it's great to have, these articles or videos or something to kind of tear down, because yeah, seriously, as much fun as we are having people, and as good of a time as we are, like, we're both in places where we have, firsthand seen the effects of what this toxic ideology, is trying to get done. So let's not forget that this is actually a very serious and gross movement of people that are actively trying to push completely un-American and harmful policies. So
Absolutely.
Go fucking vote and not for those people.
Yeah, please.
I can say that.
And call and if you see something wrong, call your governor or something, or go to school board meetings. You might get hurt and beat
Yeah.
up, but you should,
Be safe.
you still should go.
Yeah.
But well, thanks again for coming on, man. We so we always do the sign off where we say who we're gonna say fuck off to, and then we try to say fuck off together.
Nice.
So what do we say to the haters, discriminators, and masturbator shamers?
Fuck off.
Excellent. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. And we'll see you next time.